Welcome to Rock Book Show. I'm Kimberly Austin, and joining me is author Susan Masino, who's the author of this great new book called Family Tradition, 3 Generations of Hank. Welcome to the show, Susan.
Thanks, Kimberly. Thanks for having me.
Oh, it's my pleasure. This is so cool. And before we get into how much has already been written about Junior and Senior, tell me about how the inspiration for this book came to you.
I was looking for a new project, and a friend of mine is a huge Hank 3 fan, and he suggested I write a book about him. So I started to look into it, and I thought, well, there's no way I can tell the story without telling the story of his father and his grandfather. So it became a trilogy.
And you were actually able to connect directly with Hank 3, which really surprised you.
I was very shocked. The same fan of his said, email him on MySpace. He'll answer you. And I thought, okay. And so I emailed him. And within 20 minutes, I got an answer back. And he said that, wait for a phone call. His manager called me within the hour. And she said that he had been approached over a dozen times over the years to write a book. And he'd turned every one of them down.
So what do you think it was about you?
Well, my last book was on AC/DC, and he's a huge AC/DC fan.
That's not a bad connection. I am as well.
Not bad, no.
So you get to Hank, and I'm wondering what your impressions of were him going in, and then how did they change?
Well, I thought I flew down to Nashville. He wanted to spend time together, not over the phone, in person. And you kind of think the hype and the family and the fame and all of that. I thought, he'd show up in a limo, and he picked me up in his pickup truck at the airport and took me to a hotel and took my bag up to my room. And then we went to his haunted ranch house on the outside of Nashville. And we spent 2 days, recorded almost 10 hours of conversation.
I want to ask you another question, but I have to ask about the haunted house first.
Yeah, the house is crazy because it's on land from the Civil War. And they see an old man in the kitchen all the time, an apparition of him. And one night he had a band member get up in the middle of the night and demand to be taken to a hotel, and he won't come back.
That's scary.
That's pretty bad. But then, Hank also told me, too, that the kitchen window opened one night on its own. And I said, whoa. And he says, I just laugh about it because I have to live here.
Oh, my gosh. Well, that was actually something else. He told you, or actually you told him things about his family that he didn't even know.
Exactly. That was what was really cool about talking to him, is he explained things to me that I couldn't find the answers to, and I told him things about his own family he didn't even know.
And I found it so fascinating because, as we've said, so much has been written about Senior and Junior, and you do include that in the book as well. But the parallels that are still there into this third generation, and one of them that struck me was the age of 3. Hank Jr. lost his dad, and then Hank 3 lost his dad when his parents divorced.
Yes, at the same age. And Hank Sr.'s father was hospitalized around the time that he was 7 or 8. And he grew up without a father. So all 3 of them grew up without a father in the house with them. And then the tragedy, Hank Jr. fell off a mountain in 1975, severely injured, many, many surgeries. And in 2006, Hank Jr.'s 2 daughters, Holly and Hillary, were almost killed in a car accident. And Hillary has endured over 20 surgeries now.
How is it that country artists always end up living a country music song?
They do, but they write about it. What struck us both as we talked with Hank 3 and I, every family has the same thing of tragedy and, abuse and divorce and all kinds of things. And it really is a typical American family, although they happen to write some of the greatest songs ever written.
And speaking of that, he's still, of course, dealing with his granddad's legacy. But at age 20, 21, he ended up having to use that in a way.
Yeah, he did. He was served papers for child custody when his son was only 2.5. He didn't even know about his son, and that's how he found out about it. He was served. He needed to come up with a lot of money. He was, again, like you said, 21, or 23, I think, but he went to Branson for a couple of months and did his grandfather's music.
How does he feel about that today, looking back?
I don't want to say he's not proud of it, but he doesn't want to sell out. He doesn't want people to think that he's just riding his name. And when you see him live, you see he's not just riding on the coattails of anyone. He's an amazing performer.
Yeah, let's talk about that. Tell me how he describes his music.
Well, he calls it hellbilly, And we call it punk, metal, rock. And he does a country set, a hellbilly set, and then a metal set that is a little Pantera-ish.
He is incredible. I've heard about the energy that he has on stage. And you know, when you bring up Pantera, those guys, Ozzy, the Sex Pistols, those were his musical heroes and influences. And I found that another thing that was interesting in the book. His grandmother, Audrey, seemed like a really early incarnation of Sharon Osbourne.
Oh, she was. She was the original. I mean, and Lily, Hank Sr.'s mother, was the original stage mother. When he was 14 and he started playing in a band, she took the band, drove them to the gig, collected money at the door, paid the bills, and then when Audrey came along, there was a little bit of a fight between her and Lily because Lily kind of had to give up Hank to Audrey, and Audrey was not ready to just sit back and play the wife at home. She propelled Hank to pursue his career and got him to Nashville to meet with Fred Rose, and the rest is history. But Audrey was way ahead of her time as a businesswoman.
And where does Hank 3 stand today in terms of the legacy? How is he dealing with it?
I think he's doing well with it. He does his own thing. He works really hard for his money. He tours about a month on and a month off. And I think he's proud of the family, but he doesn't boast about it. He's very humble about it, which is amazing to me because I wouldn't be. I told him that. I said, hey, if I was Hank 3, I'd just be a terror.
I know. I have it tattooed on my forehead, I think.
I know. It's like, yeah. So I had a lot of fun teasing him a little bit because I don't think he's very intense and quite serious and quiet. And, I had a little fun razzing him up a little bit.
And he also has got a campaign going for his granddad with the Grand Ole Opry.
He does. He has a war against the Grand Ole Opry called reinstatehank.org. And the fact is that his grandfather was fired from the Opry in 1952, died less than 6 months later, and was never reinstated into the Opry. So he is not a member of the Grand Ole Opry, even though they use an impersonator sometimes at the door.
Do you happen to know that story, why he was fired?
His drinking. When he'd miss a gig and or miss a performance. But when you read the book and you realize how much work this man did, he toured nonstop, recorded nonstop. Every Saturday night he flew into Nashville to play the Grand Ole Opry didn't matter where he was in the world. Every Saturday night he was on that stage, and died at 29.
There's so much history and obviously the legacy of this family in Nashville, and yet so much pain still in Hank 3's life. Why does he stay there?
He grew up there. People have said that before. Maybe you should move to a bigger city or somewhere where people get you more. And he was born and raised in Nashville. And he lived in Atlanta for a while. His mother remarried for a little bit, and he did live outside the state for a while. But he was born and raised there, and he's like, this is what I know. This is my home.
I can understand that. And how about the family in general? Where do they stand today?
Oh, my gosh. Hank Jr. is still the Monday Night Football guy, doing very well with that, and just put out a new album in the last year. His daughters, Holly and Hillary Williams, both have albums out. Hank 3 just came out with Rebel Within. He's working on a new one already. They're a powerhouse of music. It's amazing. It really is, even though they've suffered like so many other families, but they still succeed beyond all barriers. Nothing stops them.
No. And the book is incredible. And in fact, there is so much new information in here that's never been told before. It's phenomenal. Susan, where can everybody get the book?
Well, you can get it at your local bookstore or go online, Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Hal Leonard, Walmart, and Target.com.
Well, see, that covers all the bases. And where can we follow you and keep up on what you're doing and what your next projects are?
Oh, I'm on MySpace, Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn, and you can go to SusanMasinoblogspot.com.
I think that covered them all.
I think I got all the corners covered.
And rockbookshow.com now, too. Thank you so much for being here, Susan, and congratulations on the book. I wish you great success.
Thanks so much, Kimberly. Thank you, and I love your show, so thanks for having me on.
Are you kidding? All the way from Wisconsin, Susan Masino, everybody.